Maybe Garlick just never had the bread. Anyone who's obsessed with real estate has probably been following the drama related to one of New York's most iconic properties, the Flatiron Building. To catch you up, the building had gone up for auction on March 23rd, was swooped up by a complete outside bidder, but after he failed to cough up the required deposit, its fate is back up in the air. Now, even in a high-stakes, high-drama world such as New York real estate, the Flatiron Building stands out for its colorful history, for its complicated ownership, and for its uncertain future. So today, in a special episode of Paydirt, let's break it down. The story starts in 1902 when the building was developed as the HQ of construction firm Fuller Company, founded by George Fuller. Now, old George is kind of known as the father of the modern skyscraper. He developed the Tacoma building in Chicago and the old New York Times building on 43rd Street. The Fuller Company anchored the Flatiron Building, but other tenants included publishing houses and insurance company Equitable Life. In 1925, Fuller sold the building to a syndicate led by Louis L.N. Rosenbaum. An Austro-Hungarian immigrant, L.N. was a canny dealmaker who made his bones in the Seattle property business. Real estate, he said once, is a science to be mastered by study and travel. Travel with eyes wide open. Now, Ellen had funded the $2 million purchase with about $500,000 in equity and levered up for the rest. There's been some speculation that one of the partners in the syndicate was Salvatore Maranzano, who would later go on to head the Bonanno crime family. That amazing nugget comes from Lucky Luciano's autobiography, but obviously there's no paper trail coming back to this. Let's fast forward to 1933 now. Ellen had not really been putting much love into the property and had also had trouble keeping up with his mortgage payments. Equitable, the insurance company that was at the building, had enough. It sued, and a foreclosure auction was set. Equitable was the lone bidder at the auction and was able to pick up the property for just over $100,000. Now, Equitable did invest some money into the property and succeeded in leasing it up to garmentos and toy companies. Just after World War II ended, it sold the building to a syndicate led by Max Silverstein. He was a banking attorney. The property manager was Harry Helmsley. Now, Helmsley, as Helmsley does, wriggled his way into the ownership group. The partnership was structured as what's known as a tenancy in common, which is also known as a TIC, and it meant that all owners had to agree on all decisions, unlike a regular partnership where majority rules. Now, TICs are really not the most harmonious way to structure deals, so it's not a surprise that upkeep of the building suffered. Sometime in the mid to late 90s, Jeff Gural, who's a major player in New York real estate, bought into the ownership. Some reports indicate that he paid as little as $40 a foot to get in. In 2006, Rome-based Sorgente Group, controlled by the Mayanetti family, bought into the building. 2 years later, it upped its stake to a majority interest that valued the property at $180 million, or nearly $900 per square foot. Side note, you might know Sorgente's principal, Veronica Mayanetti, from her bizarre Instagram. Here's a sample up here. Sorgente, which later also bought into the Chrysler building, wanted to make a big splash with the Flatiron. They envisioned converting it into a swanky hotel. But the sticking point was that the building's largest tenant by now was Macmillan Publishing, which had been steadily growing its footprint at the property. Every time space opened up, Macmillan got in there. By 2010, they occupied all but the ground floor, and with their lease running till 2018, they'd have to be bought out. Now, obviously with a TIC, all partners, as I mentioned, have to agree upon a certain course of action, so buyout talks, if there were any, didn't go really far. All we know is that it didn't happen. Okay, ready for some drama? In 2017, Macmillan announced that it was bouncing to 120 Broadway, which would leave the Flatiron Building practically vacant. In 2019, the owner struck a deal with Notel, a VC-backed co-working startup, to lease the entire property. But like many things with Notel, this did not come to fruition. Notel blew up in 2021. Its founder, Amol Sarva, is now working on some life extension startup. Newmark, where Gural is chairman emeritus, was an early investor in Notel, and this muddies the water further in that classic New York real estate way. Newmark also acquired Notel's carcass in a stalking horse bid. Anyway, back to the building. According to the other partners, Nathan Silverstein, son of Max, was a nightmare. He allegedly refused to fund any repairs, any necessary maintenance for the building, and at one point suggested physically dividing the property into 5 separate properties. It boggles the mind, Gural said. Now, Silverstein had his own beef with the partners. He alleged that Gural sought to cut Notel a sweetheart deal and didn't really try too hard to look for any alternate tenants. By 2021, the drama had gotten so bad that the partners, they all sued to force what's known as a partition sale, and an auction was set for March 23rd, 2023. This was a big deal. It was a nationally televised event. This is the frickin' Flatiron Building after all. Gural went in confident he'd be able to scoop up the building for about $80 million, given his inside track in the property. But, as they say in Yiddish, man tracht and God lacht. Man plans and God laughs. At the auction, which was held on the steps of the Manhattan County Courthouse, a complete outsider, the portly Jacob Garlick of Abraham Trust, showed up dressed somewhat like Basil Fawlty in Fawlty Towers and started bidding. 40 minutes later, he had prevailed against the Titan. The winning price was a hefty 190 million, or nearly $1,000 a foot, for an empty office building in such a tough office market. That's a pretty big price. I was totally shocked that somebody would bid so much money for the building, Goral said at the time. It's a crazy price indeed if you see the Flatiron as an office building, but what if you see it as a blank canvas, an ultra-luxe boutique hotel maybe, or maybe the swankiest single-family home in America? It's been my lifelong dream since I was 14 years old. I've worked every day of my life to be in this position, Garlick told New York One. We are honored to be a steward of this historic building, and it will be our life's mission to preserve its integrity forever. Now, this is what he said. Of course, his shock win made him the most talked about man in New York real estate. Who the hell was this guy? Where the hell is his money coming from? Is he going to be able to close? He has no track record in private equity, real estate, VC, nothing. He sort of came out of nowhere. Garlick had 2 days to cough up the first 10% of the purchase price, or about 19 million, to secure his buy. Newsflash, he didn't. He didn't come through. No money was paid up. And crucially, the second place bidder, Goral, chose not to exercise his option to purchase at his last price, which is 189.5 million, his last bid. Which means the most likely scenario is that the property is heading back to the auction block. Now, we don't know how this ends. We really have no idea. But it's a fascinating story. It's one of those classic New York real estate yarns, and we'll be following the saga super closely. But we'd love to know what you want to know. What else would you like to know? Hit us up in the comments below, and be sure to follow The Real Deal for more Paydirt breakdowns.